This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn.
Hello, Alex.
Hey Erica, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
I see you've
Uh,
brought us a guest today.
I've brought along Hedley. Hey Hedley, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Nice to see you.
Welcome, welcome, Hedley.
Thank you.
Haven't seen you in a long time. So I invited Hedley along. Well, we've known each other for quite a long time. Our relationship first started when he ditched me at school. We were
It's still coming, still coming back.
still very bitter for that. We were in a science class together, and then he decided to leave. I thought I had a friend at school the first day at school, but then he decided to leave school, and I've been bitter about it ever since.
I thought it
Yeah,
was girls that kept a grudge for a long time, Alex.
No, it's not. Apparently, it's definitely me.
Okay.
But sorry for it sounds like I'm in a farm today because apparently there's chickens running around and cows running around, so you might hear the odd and a cow noise. So apologies for that.
You mean other than you making
Other
noises?
yeah, exactly. So I'll hand over to you in a second, Hedley, but you can maybe give people an idea, a little bit of a brief introduction to yourself. But basically, Hedley is like your go-to man of anything web, digital, startups, uh, helping startups get funding, helping with business plans, or let's say not doing business plans. But me and Erica, when we first were on this journey of trying to start our marketing business, we were going from consultant and consultant who were giving us reams
Templates,
of
templates, and templates.
templates of best business plans that we need to do. And then we met with Hedley because he's been on a long journey of startups, um, um,
And he
and
told us to throw it away.
yeah, well, just do what you're good at. Help your customers. Start serving your customers rather than thinking about how are you going to do it. Just do it.
Rather
Um,
than filling in forms, because that's what we were doing, filling in lots of forms.
and then from that day, we actually just started. So thank you very much for that, Hedley. If you just want to give a little brief intro to yourself, your background and where you're at now.
Yeah, sure. And I'm glad you're inviting me here. It means that maybe the advice had sort of some semblance of logic to it, and it may have worked. So it's good to hear. And yeah, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. I'll start at the beginning, really. I mean, you've kind of given a little flavor of some of the very early days of when I sort of started out of kind of dropping out of school, which was the starting point to my journey, really. And I suppose you could say that, it was a difficult decision, especially when I had great people like Alex around that meant I had to kind of detach from to pursue a different path. And yeah, that was quite a while ago now. I decided to, not pursue the kind of typical academic route and instead started teaching myself web development. And then I kind of did quite a lot of freelance work and ended up founding a few businesses along the way. First
Fabulous.
was, yeah, so it's been a real long journey. Founded a web development agency and have been part of the founding team of a few other startups, one of which I've sort of recently exited from. And I'm now starting the cycle all over again. So yeah, it's a great time to chat and kind of gather my thoughts as well.
So
So
what's the core of your passion, Nedley, throughout all this journey? What is it that excites you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I was speaking with another founder recently, and we were both kind of saying that it's not really, it doesn't feel like a choice sometimes.
Okay.
Founding businesses to me anyway, it's just what I do. there's not, I mean, I'm super passionate about it for sure. I think it's a combination probably of being able to see, quick results, being able to say, hey, I've seen this problem and I can think of a solution. I can build something and create some value for people relatively quickly. And being able to work across lots of different areas, in a startup, you kind of have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, or hopefully you get better than that at certain things. And for me, coding, I love coding. I always have, and I realize that I certainly always will. I just like the technicality of it all. So yeah, it's probably a combination of those things, and I don't know, just blind stupidity for thinking that building something is a good idea, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, I think that's really cool. I mean, a lot of people force their way into a career thinking they need to do X, Y, and Z. But to have the freedom and liberty to say, I'm just going to try this, I'm going to drop out of school because this is actually what I want to do rather than following the traditional path is a really brave thing to do. And it's not many people can say that. I mean, so, kudos to you on that. So I mean, this is a marketing podcast, so we will have quite a lot of the questions coming at you from a marketing point of view, as you've been through many different startups, created your own businesses. I know you've been through rounds of funding with various businesses as a consultant and CTO. I mean, your resume is quite long, but we often speak to small businesses around the challenges of marketing for small businesses, especially when you don't have maybe a big marketing team or anything,
Or any
so
marketing team.
or any marketing team at all. I was just wondering, this is quite a broad question, but when you're starting a business, what are the biggest challenges you find from a marketing point of view, trying to get your business out to the public, out to your customers, as a business owner or someone who's a one-man band or 2-3-man band, very very small business?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the question really, because growth and marketing has always obviously been super important, but it's only becoming more important, especially when you're launching a new startup. You can build an amazing product, the best product in the world, but if you don't know how to market it properly, no one's going to ever see it, right? And arguably, growth is a bigger challenge than product right now, which, is what it is. I think the biggest challenges are getting those first 10 customers. It's always the way, because
outside of your mum, dad, and brother,
right,
and friends, right?
yeah, actual customers that are going to pay you money for the product you've created. That is the biggest challenge. If you can do that, then you can see what your customer acquisition cost looks like. You can see the channels that are working. You can get feedback from them, and you can understand whether you're on the right path or not. That's by far the biggest challenge, I would say, definitely.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm not as familiar with your resume as Alex is. Were you predominantly B2C in your ventures or B2B?
I tried B2C, but it's
Okay.
really, really difficult. As with many startups, I think, and it's not a bad path to take, actually. You start with B2C and you pivot to B2B, or the new kind of, maybe not new, but the phrase B2B2C as well
Yeah.
kind of comes to mind. So yeah, that's what I focused on in certainly the last 5 to 10 years more.
Okay.
I have also done some just straight up kind of B2B type work as well. But yeah, predominantly B2B2C, I suppose, which is hard because you've got to craft a product that appeals to the end customer and then work with businesses to kind of deliver it through partnerships and through them.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of businesses are doing that without knowing it, right? They think they're B2B, but they're actually B2B2C.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And it's a very different model.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find that so we're talking about growth, your customer acquisition strategy differs from B2C to B2B to B2B2C? Or do you find, or in your mind, is there a kind of similar formula? I just switched to Spanish, and that was really weird. Uh, or do you find that, yeah, do you have a set formula, or do you feel like you need to you have a very different approach for each one of those types of businesses?
Yeah, I think there are similarities because ultimately B2B or B2B2C means that you still need to acquire business customers.
Yeah.
So, you've got your usual list of classic channels that you can work through and identify which ones are most practical. You know, direct outreach, email marketing, SEO, ads, all those types of things. If you're building a product that maybe starts as B2C or pivots toward a kind of B2B2C type product, in that situation, it's maybe going to be slightly different because, paid ads, for instance, are much more practical.
Yeah.
Because you can run a whole bunch of Instagram ads or maybe TikTok ads nowadays relatively cheaply. Whereas if you're going straight in with a B2B product, you're going to look at LinkedIn ads, which are really expensive, as I'm sure you know. So, the practicalities of the different approaches will change the options you have. But from like a really kind of high level perspective, there's more similarities than differences, I would say. You're going to be looking at all your possible channels, looking at your product, thinking about what fits, launching some growth experiments, whether that's ads, maybe even SEO if you've got the time to kind of put into that. Maybe you're going to sponsor a podcast if you've got the budget to do that. I can think of some great podcasts you could reach out to sponsor. And yeah, so you're going to be like listing your possible growth channels, you're going to be testing them. But yeah, the actual specifics of which channels you might test will probably vary. And just going back to the kind of, if it's a B2C or B2B2C thing, you're going to care more. You should always care about what end users are going to be doing, but you're going to care a bit more probably because it's actual,
Revenue.
yeah, it's revenue and it's lots of people clicking around your product. Is the user
Yeah.
experience really excellent for them? For a lot of users, maybe you need to build it so it can handle like 10,000 users. Whereas a B2B product, it's going to be fewer users. You might just need 5 users to start with. You can give them a bit more of a concierge service as well, probably. It's a bit different there. So yeah, similarities and differences, I would say.
And we always say
Absolutely.
that a big challenge that people, for some reason, seems hard for a lot of people to grasp when you're doing B2B, that you're actually still selling to somebody. So ultimately, like you were just saying then, really, that there's more similarities than differences. A lot of it just depends on the makeup of your channels. And I mean, your makeup of your channels is because of the type of customer you're going for. But it's still always somebody. Doesn't matter if it's B2C, B2B, B2B, B2B to B2C. This always a mouthful. B2B doesn't mean you're selling to a building or or an office. You're selling to a person still. So you need to still have that person in your mind when trying to sell your product.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm talking really about launching a startup here, of course. When you scale your team, when you're employing 20 people and you've got a decent, ARR, you're going to be hiring a sales team. You might not do that if you're B2C, but at the early days, it's more similar. And yeah, you're going to have you're just going to be busy trying things out, testing things out. The line might be a bit blurred as well as to where you fit. So it's difficult to generalize, what if you're a B2C product, but it's $10 a month? It's a pretty different situation than if it's a B2B product that you're trying to get enterprise customers for early on in your journey. And likewise, if you think you're a B2C product, but you're charging $100 a month because it's quite a, you know, a high value product, maybe a physical product or something. Again, there's a lot of sort of similarities there as to what you're doing early on in the journey, particularly. So yeah, I'd say don't worry about it early on. Just go out and test out all the different channels, you know, see what works, see what doesn't work.
And one of the conversations that comes up with a lot of clients that we work with is, especially startups, is giving their services away for free. And so I mean, there's different thoughts around it because people want to try before they buy, that kind of stuff, especially if you're doing SaaS, you know, some sort of tech SaaS kind of offering. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to in some situations. I think it's just so common nowadays to launch with at least a free trial. You know, a free tier is useful as well to have that lower barrier to entry for people to come on, test your product out, and then convert them to a paying customer. So I think you probably have to in most situations. If there are certain, you know, services and products where you maybe don't have to, or you can maybe not do that. Ultimately, though, really, I think with, you know, unit economics and business models, I think it's really just a kind of, it's a sum, really, isn't it? It's an equation. Can you make more money selling something without a free tier, or can you make more money selling it with a free tier and then upselling them or converting them? You could try both. It's you know, it's completely fine to try one for a month, cohort those users and measure how much money they make you over the next, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, and then switch it. Only, you know, require that they pay up front, and see what your conversion rates look like and see how much money you make, because every product's different. But yeah, if you can sell without a free tier, then that's brilliant, because then you know it is better if you can, because then your customers are more bought in. You're not servicing potentially hundreds or thousands of free tier customers and everything as well. Yeah, but a lot of my answers are just test it out. So yeah.
That's our answer too.
Yeah, I mean that's a great philosophy. I mean, we come from a direct response background, you know, trying to measure every single
iteration
doing, and it's really, really important. I mean, that's just how you gather data and understanding, rather than just putting your bias onto things. You've got to try it in the real world. It's very, very hard to understand how your customers are going to act without actually putting them into a position where they can act on your product.
For sure.
But the pricing is a really tough one. I mean, even across service products like what we do, for example, it can be really hard to set your pricing at the value that you think it is versus the market versus what your service is. It's something that I think does change quite a lot as you were saying, as you're going, you're testing and testing and testing, and you're really understanding the value that your customers are getting from it, from what their perception of it is versus what is actually making you a good margin.
Definitely. Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I've received about pricing strategy is that your pricing is going to end up being what it's worth to the customer, or what the customer thinks it's worth, rather than how much it's actually worth. You know,
Absolutely.
and that's, if you really think about that, you know, I think mobile phones are quite interesting, right?
I was just about to say that.
It's okay. It's a classic one. So mobile phone contracts, just the price is, you know, crazy, because you'll be paying whatever £50 a month, and suddenly 2 years later there's like a deal for £30 a month that's like 10 times the allowance, when they haven't really changed the infrastructure, and you're thinking, how's that possible? And it's because it's just what they get away with selling it to you, I guess, is one way of looking at it, or what you perceive it to be in terms of value and the anchoring you put on that. One interesting example I saw recently was like this pricing table. It just had two pricing offers. And one of them was like $20 a month or something, or 25. And it didn't have that much. And that was the only reason that pricing tier was there, was to anchor your kind of thoughts, to then put another one next to it for $35. Because so it's these weird psychological kind of hacks that you can think about doing to optimize pricing.
Yeah. And I mean, back to the free, there's two mistakes I've seen people make with that. The one is not having a clear strategy for the upsell to paid. That's like such a disaster. If you're going to launch a free trial or a free offer or anything, at least have a plan of how people are going to get to the paid version. And then the second is that sometimes people like, and especially like with, lately I've been doing a lot of work with memberships, with groups, and actually people like the elite status, the feel of it. And if you let freebies in the door, it loses that status, right? Of feeling special, because we know people who don't pay for something don't value it, right? So it immediately devalues it. So then maybe don't do it. So it's really important to think about what is the impression you're trying to create with your product. If you have this is an elite group, or you're trying to create special, you must charge, even if it's £5 or whatever it is, to get entry to the door, or for your minimum tier. But it's to keep that feeling. Whereas if you start putting a zero on, I don't know, it devalues the entire chain, even the people who've paid, right? Like, just everyone starts thinking, well, now you're just letting anyone in. We're not special anymore. So I think there has to be thought about the end game and how you want your users, your businesses, or your end customers, whoever it is, to feel, or how they want to feel. I think cell phones is one of those, because in the beginning, when they started, they were very, very expensive, but it was this elite group who had it, right? Like, I remember I was at university when the first cell phones came out, and on our whole campus, we had one guy who had a cell phone, right? His name was Gary. And everyone was flocking to him. Like, he was like, I don't know, 'cause it was just like, oh, he had it, right? He had the phone. And he made sure as everyone started getting it, because then it started rolling out, he kept making sure he had the best upgrade, like always, always, always. So he was always the elite. And everyone wanted to be with Gary, right? Like, because he had the best phone always. And it's just but he paid for it, right? He definitely, and he was willing to pay for it because it gave him that status. And so it's about thinking that through. If they'd given the next version for free, if they wanted to, it would have completely devalued that whole chain of this whole world of Garys that were using it as a status symbol and were willing to pay for that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's when it's embedded in the model itself, when the whole business is kind of fundamentals require that exclusivity. You obviously then have to charge, and you have to think carefully about that. It's a strategy in itself almost. It's almost like it's a fundamental part of the business economics and value proposition, that fact going to be, a high value, highly valuable product or service.
With the free ones, you do just have to give them just enough to want a little bit more, right? So I was just doing a video the other day, and I found an online text to speech tool, so like an AI voiceover. Really, really good. Really, really good. Sounds just like if you're getting a professional person to do it in a studio with your script. And I didn't actually I thought it was completely free because I'm an absolute idiot. And I did this whole script, and the video was about 2.5 minutes. So I thought, well, that's pretty decent, 2.5 minutes, and I got a great voice for free, because that can cost you about, I don't know, 500 quid to do a voiceover or something like that. It can be quite expensive. I thought, oh, that's really, really good. And I did this one as a kind of trial, and the video that I actually wanted to do, the actual script that I wanted to do for the video was one I was doing, I did after. So I did this one, I thought really good. I passed it through to people I'm working with. They were like, oh, this is really good. I said, okay, cool, let's do the real one. And it was like, oh, you've run out of credits. So I was like, oh God, that is so annoying.
Yeah.
And then it's like the next option, you got paid $30 a month. I'm like, I'm not going to use it that often. You know.
Yeah.
Right, I'll pay it.
There you go. And I bet they tested that price point loads just to get it. It's not quite too much money that you're gonna object to it.
Yeah.
So they
That's not 100, right? At 100, you would have gone no.
No way, yeah.
But you're like 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I could do it. I could do it. I
Like
could do it.
$30 as well. I was like $30. Oh, but in pounds, okay, that's like £23. It's even less than
Yeah.
the number 30.
There you go. It's like vitamins and painkillers, that kind of like thought, you know, it's like just press this button and we'll solve all your problems right now.
Yeah.
You can go and hire someone or look for it's probably like you're doing a subconscious calculation of what's the effort for me to go away, find a different app, even if it's completely free, and the chance of me finding that and do it all again. No.
And then I've got to send it right back through all my stakeholders, get them to be happy again. No, I'm
Yeah.
paying the 30.
Yeah. So that's a really clever way of annoying, yeah, but clever of getting people in on what is effectively a free trial, or a free version of the product, and then saying you need to pay to upgrade now, which is super common. I mean, it's a really.
I mean, the free trial market is crazy now. I remember, I don't know, a few years ago, you could actually legitimately find apps that were just completely free. But now there's rarely anything free. It's kind of like the TV subscriptions. Before you just had Sky and you've got all the movies, blah, blah, blah. Now you can't watch all the movies unless you subscribe to Netflix, Prime, Apple, Hulu, or whatever, all of these, Disney. It's a hugely cluttered market, which I guess makes it even more difficult now to get your people from the free trial to the paid version.
Yeah, probably it probably does. It's an interesting time right now, because you're right that in many verticals it is busy. It's super.
You could just hop from freebie to freebie for as long as you want, right?
Yeah, you could. Or there's often, I think Netflix, you can sign up for free still, can't you? And it's just adverts.
Yeah, you get adverts.
Quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah. I prefer, you know, the idea of you pay for a product, you get a great service, and they don't steal all of your data, maybe a bit, but not all. You deliver good customer service. I think it's a better model. You know, I pay for an email client. You know, I don't use Gmail, and it's called Missive. I think it's really great. I've got a great app on my phone. It, you know, puts all of my inboxes into one, and I'm super happy to pay for that. And I don't think they've got a free option, or if they do, it's pretty limited. And I really like that approach. Obviously, that's from a consumer perspective, kind of, and a philosophical perspective. But from if you're running a business and you need to acquire users, you've got to just play the game, and you've got to do what you need to do to get them. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough in such a crowded marketplace, but there's always cycles of, you know, there'll be a huge explosion in streamers or in a particular vertical, and then they'll get too big and they'll get too cluttered and too advanced, or there's too many and you've got to pay for all these different ones. So that creates, you know, new opportunities and new space where you
Well, they start buying each other, right? That's the other thing we start seeing. They just stop buying each other, and then you end up with a few again.
Yeah, that's true as well. Consolidation can happen, and then there'll be new kind of opportunities maybe through that as well, to start like a cool new indie kind of streaming service that's like a bit cheaper and just doesn't give you these crazy suggestions all the time or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time right now, especially with AI kind of coming in as well to
completely
change everything. Yeah.
The other angle from a startup perspective, that both Alex and myself have faced quite a bit in conversation is the balance between brand marketing, brand awareness, and actual lead gen.
Mm.
And we've had, I mean, across the board, the spectrum, but we've had business owners who've come in wanting brand awareness. That's they understand that brand awareness is key. No one's ever heard of them. They've got to start breaking in. But they're not focusing on the lead gen side and then wondering why there's no sales. And then we've had people on the other side not looking at brand awareness at all and only focusing on lead gen. And then we've had some in the middle. What are your thoughts from a startup perspective, trying to break into the market in terms of that split in the marketing?
From my personal experience, it's lead gen every time. And, I've operated typically with startups that are very early stage, launching myself, launching them or working with others that are launching them. And the particular verticals I've worked in, it is pretty much always about lead gen. Brand awareness, I think, yeah, I mean, it's pretty typical if you're starting your company, you love the idea, you've got this brand that you think's super cool, and you've seen other brands out there on billboards or on adverts or whatever, and you kind of naturally think, I want that. I want people to know my brand name. I want, that logo to create kind of some recognition with it. But it is probably not going to happen for a long time. It takes so much time and money to create brand awareness in a space. And I kind of personally think that brand awareness is something that's usually earned more than bought. My favorite quote for what a brand is a brand is what people say about you when you're out the room.
Yeah,
Mm.
And you can't,
absolutely.
you can't pay people to say nice
Yeah.
things about you. It's very hard to. So I guess I come at it from that angle. I completely, recognize that certain areas, I don't know, maybe fashion, I'm not familiar with it, but maybe you need to spend more time on brand awareness there in a little bit of a niche. Maybe if you're kind of, if you're launching something and you're getting traction pretty quickly and you're growing it, and you work in a vertical that needs a lot of trust, then maybe brand awareness is good to look at as well. But early stages, very early stages, you have to focus, in my opinion, mostly on lead generation more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Alex and I feel. And I think what the clients who've struggled with the most are the ones that have been pushing brand awareness and then, or brand awareness and SEO, right? Like, let's do that, and then we wonder why there's no sales.
Yeah, because I often find that with small businesses, you have the low-hanging fruit customers, the ones who are actually like Eric always says, you got the pebble in the shoe and the nail in the foot. So you got the nail in the foot people who are desperate for your product,
Yeah.
and there are those people for whatever product you have. And for those people, you don't need to make them aware of the problem, aware of the brand. You just need to give them an offer about the solution,
I'll
because
fix it. Yeah.
they already know the problem. So especially like what you're talking about from those startup positions, you've done the awareness of the pain part. So they're already there because you've got they already know they have it. So that really resonates with me, what you said there.
And from a startup perspective, it's about investing the time to find that. It's finding that low-hanging fruit in the beginning so that you've got your immediate boost of sales, which gives you your immediate boost of revenue, which gives you credibility, it gives you testimonials, it starts giving you all the other things you need. But then you have to do that first, right? Then, if you've got space and you've got extra budget, I always say if you've got Coca-Cola's budget, absolutely, let's do brand. That's wonderful, right? But most startups don't have a Coca-Cola budget to start with, or even if they do, whoever is giving them that budget is not going to want to wait 5 years till they start seeing a return, right? They're gonna want a return. So it's about spending the effort going, right, this is the problem we solve. Where do we find these people with an urgent need that are going to just give us the money regardless of not knowing who we are? Because that's what you got to find when you're a startup and no one knows you, right? You got to find people who are going to be happy if you just fix their problem. They will give you their money, right? And then you can start the rest.
Yeah, that's pretty much usually what it boils down to, exactly what you've just described there. And I think that it can be challenging because sometimes you will read blog posts or listen to advice which is targeted at a startup, but that startup might be 20 people big and 5 years down the line, right? And you can,
and with a Coca-Cola budget.
yeah, maybe they've got that VC money that they need to spend.
Yeah. We've talked about that actually, I think in a previous episode about the mountain of information that's out there and tools that are out there to help you do things. It's very, very confusing. It's almost like, you know, the WebMD thing. I've got a pain in my side. Oh well, that, you know, you're probably dying because you might have all these things. Da, 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 da. It's exactly what you were just saying there. It can be fatal to digest everything you've got online without filtering and just taking everything that you're reading as gospel.
Yeah, I think that an early stage startup is very different to a startup. And that, you know, you can cross that path at different times in the journey. It could be literally within the first couple of months. If you get those 10 customers, you've got a really great product, you've got a few people in your team already. Or it could be a few years down the line, depending on the journey and the space you're in. So it can be quite challenging to think about what the appropriate way to think about things is. And I certainly struggle with that as well. You know, you launch a product and you think, oh, let's spend a few days on the logo, and it's not,
yeah,
not the right approach.
Yeah. So Hedley, I know at the beginning we did a little intro into your background, but I don't think we actually covered what is your current project right now, and if you want to talk a little bit about what you're up to now, what's your latest venture?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, I've exited a startup, fairly recently, which I'm still involved in at an arm's length, and they're doing really great, and it's great to be involved. That's Homebox, that startup, and I'm now doing a few different things. I'm doing some work with other startups as a kind of fractional CTO, I guess you could say, a consultant, however you want to describe it, just kind of helping early stage startups with their tech, basically, which is brilliant. I love doing that. I can code. I can kind of use some of the knowledge I built up to try to help them. And yeah, I've got a couple of other projects. I mean, I've got, as with many people, I've got a big list of projects that some of them have been worked on. The two major projects are one called Bitstream. So Bitstream is like it's quite a technical thing. It's an API analytics solution. So if you're a coder and you've got an API and maybe there are other people connecting to your API and you want more insight into how it's being used, then Bitstream can help. And the other project, which is not launched yet, but will be soon, is in the music space, actually. So that's...
We're going to get an exclusive drop here.
You will. Yeah, you will. Yeah. So it's called Sound Bubble, and it's going to be an app that initially helps people share audio tracks privately or publicly. So if you're a producer and you're forever pinging files into Dropbox or Google Drive or wherever, and it's all a bit of a mess and files get automatically deleted sometimes, this is going to solve your problem. You put your tracks or your EP or whatever you want into Soundbubble, and it gives you a really nice page where you can share your music with other people privately or publicly. And there's a few other things on the roadmap that are going to be quite exciting with that project that I'm still kind of thinking about what direction to go with. Yeah, that's been really, really fun working in the music space. as Alex knows, I've been part of it for a long time, music space.
Yeah, that sounds like a great little project. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So if anybody, we have a lot of startups who listen to us. If anybody needs a fractional CTO, someone to help them in the startup, on their tech side, in their startup, or with coding or any of the pieces that you just mentioned, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can go to withbalance.co.uk, which is my kind of studio, as I call it, website, and you can get in touch with me through there, or you can message me on LinkedIn. I think my DMs should be open on there. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice one.
Well, Hedley, it's been wonderful chatting with you. It's been a long time since we've caught up, but some exciting projects on the go. And I was just looking because I keep forgetting, but thanks to your advice, Marketing Detective Agency will be 5 in February. So you obviously gave us some great advice.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great to talk about all of these things. Yeah, really great. Thank you so much.
That's one.
Awesome.
Cheers, Hedley.
Thanks, Alex. See you later. Bye.
That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.